If you found yourself here, it's probably because you have a strange and wonderful mind. Let me reassure you, you are in the right place. My name is Sarah, and this is Sarah After Dark. On today's episode, we are exploring haunted items. It's very fitting at the minute because anyone who follows me on TikTok will know I have just received something which has been called the demon doll. But we're going to get into that soon. I've also got a story which has been sent in by one of you, which is very fitting for today's episode. So let's chat objects, dolls, and would you believe it, a dressing table. Now this is such a big question and I see it a lot online, and people have asked me this question. Can a spirit or an entity attach itself to an object or a doll? Now we see it a lot in horror movies. We see this stuff when we look at the Lorraine Warren Museum and Annabelle herself, but it does open a huge question. How and why? Just like everything paranormal, there is no right or wrong answer because, as always, the truth is nobody really knows. We can only speak on experience and theories, which is what we're going to speak about today. So let's start with how. How does a spirit attach itself? And that alone brings a massive lot of theories because there is a lot of people who actually believe that spirits are physically inside of an object. Let's use a doll for example. People do believe that the actual energy is contained within that doll. Others believe that the spirit is attached to the doll but not necessarily inside the doll. I hope that makes sense. This can happen by two key ways. The entity or spirit has been summoned to that object using some form of ritual or dark practice. You've probably heard of a Dybbuk box. When it comes to trapping or summoning a spirit inside, this is usually the typical thing that you will see, a wooden box covered in wax and sealed, locked forever, claiming it contains some unknown or even dark evil entity. These boxes are done through rituals. The box would be open to start with and the person conducting the ritual will create a surrounding spiritual circle of protection, let's just say. So they'll put it around the box, trapping themselves in that circle with the Dybbuk box, what is going to be the Dybbuk box. They usually use something like a Ouija board throughout this practice to communicate and speak with the spirit before tricking it into the box. Once they believe that the spirit is inside, they then close the box, coat it in wax, which acts as a prevention, should we say, of it not being opened again. It doesn't have to be something realistically big. You can get really big Dybbuk boxes, but you can also get really small ones. So smaller ones will be done using exactly the same methods, and then essentially they would then be placed inside of an object like a doll, making it, well, haunted. The other way a spirit can attach itself, honestly, is by choice of that spirit, which leads us really into why people believe, and me included, that some spirits choose to attach themselves to something, usually because that item once belonged to them. So let's refer to a doll again. We could have a doll which belonged to a woman and she kept it all the way from being a child all the way to being an adult when she passed. Then she passes over and she chooses to attach herself to that doll because there is a strong emotional attachment to it. It's a strong link to their identity, who they used to be when they were alive. I personally do believe that this is possible. I 100% believe it's possible. But in my opinion, I believe that spirit is around and will always be around that item, not bound to it. It can't leave. I just believe it has an emotional footprint almost. It just has a strong emotional connection to that object and therefore is drawn to being around the object rather than being trapped inside of the object or can't leave. I think if someone is attached to a doll, for example, they are attached to the doll and they are around the doll, but I feel like they can also freely leave at any point and even come back. It's believed that dark and negative entities attach themselves to objects to amplify their power, using that object almost like a magnet. Some even believe that these darker entities are able to form these attachments by using negative energy in general. So let me give you an example. Say that we have a castle, okay? and the castle, of course, is full of furniture and full of different items. And there has been something really bad that's actually happened in that castle, like a murder. Now, a dark, negative entity could then feed off that negativity in that atmosphere and attach itself to something in that castle, like a chair. So now we take the chair out of the castle and it goes into the charity shop and someone buys that chair. That entity may have already attached itself to that chair because it's picked up the negative emotion from the castle and fed it. Does that make sense? You can't answer me, but I'm going to say it does. It's kind of scary, actually. Speaking of scary, that leads me on to speaking about something even scarier, something personal to me. Now, if you follow me on social media in general, you'll be aware of this. And that is that I have just bought something which is very allegedly haunted. So here's the story. I was casually surfing the dark web, safely, I must add. I was doing some research into the Epstein files and seeing if there was anything a little bit deeper on the internet. And that is the purpose why I was on there, nothing to do with any of this. Now, if you don't know what the dark web is, it is a much deeper part of the internet that you can't just easily access. So what we use for everyday internet usage has been filtered and tamed down. It's ran with servers checking everything. It's completely monitored by authorities and the government. So anything illegal or anything that crosses a boundary, it will not be visible to you. However, there is ways of accessing the non-filtered sites, the black markets, and some very disturbing things. And that's by using certain softwares, VPNs, and a few other things to dig in a little bit deeper. I'm not going to go in too much further because I do not advise it. However, it is something I've done for a long time. My other platform is mainly about news, conspiracy, and corruption. And I find a lot of my information out by going deeper than what Google is willing to show me. Anyway, so I was browsing and I ended up on a live chat room. So I was talking with a few people. I've got no idea who these people were. And I said to them, what's the creepiest, weirdest sites and links that you've found so far on the dark web? I'm curious. Because the problem is with the dark web, you can't just browse it the way you would browse Google. There is search engines on there, but they work very, very differently. And everything works on links and backlinks and marketplaces. People then began sending me links to things that they'd found, that they stumbled across and thought was kind of creepy. One of them links was a marketplace selling listings for haunted items. And on this page was everything from cursed skulls, Dybbuk boxes, and even someone's funeral outfit believed to have an attachment. And as I was scrolling, I saw some weird listing, and it looked peculiar, and it was labelled the demon doll. Naturally, well, it caught my attention. Now, this was the listing. This is what the description on the listing read. It said, believed to have a dark attachment which tends to present himself in different ways. Whoever is attached to this doll is not nice. The doll so far has had 4 owners to date, all of which have passed him on due to upscuttle in their homes, reoccurring nightmares, and the smells of burning wood. He is believed to have been used in a ritual conducted by 2 dark witches. There is satanic links with this doll, so please be careful. They then go on to say that they've studied him for the past 6 months and had many people also study him alongside. And they don't want him anymore because strange things have been happening. They've had weird EVP recordings, and they truly believe that the attachment is not human. Well, again, naturally, that caught my attention. And not because I've got some weird death wish, just to make that clear. More because, for me, I'm very much on the fence about all of this stuff. I believe in spirit, of course I do, 1000%. But I struggle with these dark, almost demonic attachments that some people claim that there is. And that's simply because I personally have not experienced it. I've visited places that have contained alleged demonic dolls, but haven't gotten anything from them. For me, experience is everything, and seeing really is believing. I am absolutely invested when it comes to paranormal, and understanding it, that I am physically willing to cross a boundary or two along the way. And that is probably the main reason why I bought it. After an anxious wait, I got a message to say it had been delivered. I had to use a PO box. I was not getting this thing from the dark web ordered to my address. I even used a fake name. I then went and picked the doll up, brought it back, and literally began recording from that unboxing moment to everything that's happened so far. The name given to the doll was Diablo, which we realised was a Spanish translation for devil. He came absolutely stinking of fire. He smelled burnt. He looked burnt. His hands were bound with string. He was holding a Ouija board planchette, which was all wrapped in string around his hands. And there was a note on the top. I'm just getting the note right now to read you. It said, "Keep him close, but not too near. He feeds off silence, doubt and fear. And buried deep where seams are tight, sleeps something sealed away from sight." I think it was 2 or 3 days after having him in my possession, I decided to take him up to the loft and conduct a paranormal investigation to try and understand him, to try and see if I felt anything from him. Did I feel like anything was really attached to this doll? Or was it just one big hoax? Because you see these haunted doll listings everywhere. And I am not convinced that every single doll is haunted. I'm not. I'm sorry, I'm not. And I think some people do, unfortunately, feed off the paranormal, and they see it as a way of buying a doll that maybe look creepy, maybe making it look even creepier and selling it with an extra 0 on the price tag, and people will pay that money because they think they're getting something that they're wanting to explore or they're interested in. So I conducted a paranormal investigation. We did it live. We did it live with people watching us. And that night, that doll flung itself over. Now, naturally, yes, I will try and debunk it, and I'll say it could be just gravity. It could have just fell. It may have just slipped over. It could have. It absolutely could have. But if you were there and seen the way the doll fell, as a retaliation to what questions I was asking, I was physically asking the doll if he was dark. I said, "Are you dark? Are you negative? Do I need to be frightened of you?" And this doll then toppled over, which was just a little bit of a jump scare. Anyway, since then, people started to message me saying, "Sarah, that note, it means something." And I said, "What do you mean it means something?" And they said they truly believe that something was inside of this doll. And the more I read the note, the more I actually agreed, because the last line says, "And buried deep where seams are tight, sleeps something sealed away from sight." So, me being me, I decided to strip the doll down. And I'm glad I did, because he's wearing a really battered, burnt dungaree set. And when I took the dungarees off him and stripped him right the way down to nothing, I realised that there was stitching at the back, like his lower back, in like black stitching. It didn't match any other stitching on the doll. It didn't match anything to do with the doll. In fact, it didn't even look like it had been stitched well. It looked like it had been stitched by a child. We then opened it and found inside of him was a little glass jar, absolutely coated in black wax, containing I don't know what. There was many things in there, which was like a white salt at the bottom. People said, "Is it ashes?" I don't think so. I think it was like a salt or some form of powder. There was a burnt, what looks like letter inside of him, maybe even some soil, and even what looks like hair. Yeah, and it let's just say it creeped me out. It really creeped me out. And I got some advice off people, and the advice was to put the jar back inside of the doll and stitch it back up. Whoever put that there, put it there for a reason. Don't tamper with it. Don't open the jar. Put it back and pretend you didn't find it, basically. So there was a small problem with that. I don't own a sewing kit, and I wouldn't even know where to begin when it comes to sewing. So, as it was Mother's Day the other day, and I was already going to see my mother, I decided that she was going to do it. She just didn't know. By the way, if you want to see that video, I did video it. I did video me going to a house and asking her if she would stitch up the doll. And I gotta say, she was a great sport. She did it, and she done a fantastic job. And she even colour matched the cotton so it looked neat and tidy. So he's all stitched back up. He's good as new. He's good to go. He looks better than he did before, I must say myself. So Sunday just gone, I decided to take him back up to the loft again and redo a paranormal investigation and see what happens. This time, he didn't fall over. However, the investigation itself was weird. It was weird, but it was so active. We were getting intelligent answers. The energy up there was next level. Cat balls going off, motion lights going off, REM pods, EMF spikes galore. It was exciting. It was exciting. So my plan is, some point this week, I am going to do a one-on-one with the demon doll. Mr. D, we've called him, by the way, because I don't really like saying Diablo. So me and Mr. D are going to sit down and we're going to have a chat. And I'm going to see what I can actually find out about this doll. Is it actually haunted? And if it is it really negative? Because do you know what? It might not be. So I will be giving updates, and if you don't already, please jump over to TikTok is probably your best place, and YouTube, Sarah After Dark, the name's the same on both. I will be posting updates. I will be doing live investigations on there. I'll be doing everything with this doll to try and find out whether I'm going to actually keep him or not, because that part, I don't know. Anyway, to finish this episode off, I got sent in a story and I couldn't have picked a better episode to read this one, so I'm glad I've sat on it. I think I was sent this about 2 weeks ago and I've been waiting to make it fit, and well, you're going to hear it. Hi Sarah, love the podcast. I've got a weird story and you might think I'm a little bit crazy, but here goes. Well, let me stop you there. We are all a little bit crazy. Anyone who is listening to this podcast so far, and anyone who's made it this long in the podcast, must be a little bit crazy to keep listening. Okay, let's get into it. Ready? I grew up quite close to my grandmother. She would take care of me whilst my mum was at work. She would collect me from school, and I would even spend my weekends having sleepovers there. She had this old vintage dressing table, which was stunning, and she would sit me there on the chair and brush my hair. I loved it growing up. She had old-fashioned perfumes with the little pump on, and it was perfect. When she passed away, I was in my late 20s and had my very own house. So when my mum asked if I wanted anything from Gran's house to keep, immediately I said yes, the dressing table, and I put it straight in my bedroom because I loved it. Things began happening in my house. I have never experienced anything I guess we would call paranormal in there before. I'm a very strong believer in it all. I didn't actually put it down to the dressing table because, well, that just sounds outrageous. But it only began when the dressing table entered my house. I would hear taps and knocks through the night. At the time I had 2 cats. They began acting strange. One of them would constantly be wanting to be on the dressing table and the other wouldn't go anywhere near it. I spoke about the old perfume bottles my gran used to have with the old pumps on. They would make like an air noise when they were squeezed. Well, I kept them too. They were on display. And one night whilst I was laid in bed, I heard it. The same noise. The perfume bottle. I turned the side light on to find it turned around. I know I hadn't left it that way, and the cats weren't even in the room with me. I started getting slightly paranoid. What if this table has an attachment and maybe my gran knew? But as a child, I would have never understood that. Could that be the case? I spoke to my mum about it and she said that she thought I'd lost my mind a little bit. She said maybe it was to do with grief and maybe I was having a psychological experience rather than a physical one. But I knew in my heart I wasn't. This went on for at least 3 months before something I will never ever forget happened. It was an evening. It wasn't too late. I'd just gotten out the shower and I was sat at that dressing table brushing my hair. It felt extremely cold all of a sudden and I felt almost like a hand on my shoulder. It made me jump, but not in a bad way. I didn't feel the need to spin around because the dressing table has a 3-way mirror. I can literally see the whole room. I decided to do something I wasn't even aware I was brave enough to do. I decided to turn off the big light and light a candle on that dressing table. I sat in front of the mirror and I asked who was there. I said, I need to know that I'm not imagining all of this. I need to know that this is real. And then it happened. My gran's face, as clear as day, appeared in the mirror behind me. I spun around, but nobody was there. I really believed that the love that my gran had for that table, mixed with the fact that I had chosen to keep it, had developed this spiritual connection between me and my gran, allowing me to see her. I still feel her presence around me. I don't live in the same place anymore, but I still have that dressing table, and I will until the day that I die. I feel like it's my connection to my gran, and if I ever got rid of it, I'm scared she would leave too. Thanks for listening, Sarah. I hope this all makes sense. Well, firstly, thank you for sending this story, because that was an incredible read. I really loved it, and I think it's because it gives a different vibe when we think about haunted items. And I'm not necessarily saying that your gran's dresser is haunted, but the connection is there to an object. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I truly believe that spirits attach themselves to things because of the emotional connection. So your gran has emotional connection to that dressing table. Not only has she got her own memories on there, but she has your memories grown up too. So you sat there as a kid and she brushed your hair. There's your connection. There's your object connection. So yes, I 100% believe that your gran is attached to that dressing table. There's no doubt about it. But the fact that you managed to actually see her through the mirror is incredible. And people do say that mirrors are a portal to the other side, and it is the best way to see spirit. And the fact that she has physically presented herself to you, wow. Just remember, if you've got a spooky story, a scary story, or a personal experience that you want to share, I do leave links below this podcast, so there is ways you can email me and get across to me, contact me on social media. I'm always happy to listen to a spooky story, and ever so often they do get featured on this podcast. If you could spare a few seconds just to leave a comment on this podcast, give it a rating, that would be massively appreciated. It pushes the podcast out, it allows us to grow, and it allows every Weird Wednesday, of course, to look like this. And until next time, keep being a little bit weird and even a little bit spooky. Good night.